Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Walk for episode 7. And following on, I suppose, from the conversation with Martin, sort of something sat with me for quite some time. It was his mantra around everything will be all right and we're going to be okay. And today's episode feels a lot different for me. And that's not because I planned it, but I think it's just because life has a way of slowing you down or stopping you when you don't actually slow down yourself. At the moment, I'm injured. I'm off work. I'm sort of in constant pain. It's been a couple of weeks of just grief. Couple of weeks of uncertainty. It's been a lot of physio, doctors, uh, appointments, scans, all that type of stuff, and it throws life into a lot of throws life into a bit of clarity and gives you a lot of downtime. And it's now that my body, for a long time, I thought my mind would stop me from working or stop me from functioning, but my body's actually told me that I need to stop. And it's so hard at the moment. Like, I can't do the simple things. I can't get on the floor with the kids and play, and I can't be as present as I want to be, even though I'm there and I'm trying my best. I'm trying to sort of hide that pain from them. But I had a moment this morning where Sol said to me, he goes, how's your back, Dad? Can I pick you up, or can you pick me up? And I was like, not yet, mate. And he goes, I really miss that. And that hurts, because I love that feeling of picking my kids up, holding them, giving them a cuddle, wrestling them, and not being able to do it's pretty hard. And it's been really confronting this last couple of weeks in ways that I didn't expect. There's been, a lot of breakdowns and tears and guilt and moments where I've sort of questioned everything and what I'm doing and what's my purpose. And we also found out that Sol's sort of got a surgery coming up soon, and that's sitting really, really heavily as well. And I found myself asking a lot of questions I didn't plan on asking myself yet, like, was this meant to happen now, or is this some form of a turning point? Or is it sort of just life forcing me to stop in the hardest way possible? I mean, I'm grateful that I'm getting to see the kids in the morning and spend some time with them during the day, but I'm also wish that I didn't have to go through the pain so I could do the day-to-day things. And I suppose it could be a case of short-term pain for long-term gain, but I don't have a lot of answers today. I just have a lot of honesty. And I know there are a lot of men who listen to this, and carers and parents and fathers who have been there too, or probably right where I am right now. And I just want to talk about what happens, I suppose, when life stops you, and how we learn to trust the rebuild, which I've spoken about so many times. You have to rebuild. And I've been doing a fair bit of writing and journaling, and I've written a lot of stuff down. So if I am looking down and up, I'm sorry. It's just, I don't want to skip any part that I feel is important that I've sort of captured over the last couple of weeks. For a lot of men, our identities build on what we can produce, our work, stability, and our income. And we don't always say it out loud, but providing becomes, I suppose, the way that we would measure our worth. If we're not making enough money, we're like, I'm useless. Or if we're not providing enough stability at home and bills are stacking up, it's like, well, what more can I do? And I know that better than anyone. Always take that extra shift at work, or that extra overtime, or do those extra hours, or go above and beyond outside of work. And that's how for years I've sort of measured my worth, especially when I've become a parent. But when it's all taken away, and even though just like temporarily, hopefully, something inside us fractures. And I suppose the injury can do that. If you're made redundant and you lose your job, it can do that. Burnout definitely does that. Illness does that. And all of a sudden you're sitting there and you're sort of thinking, like, who am I? Like, I'm still a husband, and I'm still a father, and I'm still a man with responsibilities, but you just can't perform the role the way you used to. And being off work has probably forced me to sit with something very uncomfortable. And I suppose it's the realization that I've tied so much of my value to what I can physically do. My body is my tool at work, and Now that tool's broken and requires maintenance. And I suppose when my body has said no, I probably didn't know who I was meant to be in the meantime. Like, I can't do the day-to-day stuff that I normally do. Um, and so all of a sudden it's like, well, who am I? What am I meant to do? Like, I'm at home and I know to be present and I know to be, playful and but I can't do any of those things. I can be present, but I'm in pain. And I can't be playful, but I can watch them play. And there's probably men who feel this deeply, or parents or carers who feel this really deeply right now. Um, Sort of the ones sidelined by injury, or the ones who are burnt out beyond function, or the ones stuck in limbo. They're sort of waiting for their body or their circumstances to catch up. And when the question becomes, or when a question gets hit to a provider, it's sort of that who I am now. And that's when the provider can't provide. And pain changes you, I believe, not just physically, but emotionally as well. Chronic pain wears you down, it shortens your fuse and it steals your patience. And I've been dealing with that for the last 2 weeks. And it introduces a kind of grief that's sort of hard to explain. And, at the moment, I'm sort of grieving that not being able to pick my kids up the way I want to. I'm sort of grieving the version of who I was when I could just get on with things. And I grieve momentum. These last sort of 6 or 7 months, I put so much work into eating right, getting in the gym, being present with the kid. Like, I mean, I've put so much work in. All of a sudden, it's ripped out from underneath me, and then there's a guilt that comes with that. You're guilty because you can't be present the way you want to be, and you're guilty for resting when your family needs you. Like, I've had to lay down a few times because I'm just in that much pain, or walking hurts, or my wife's trying to get stuff ready. She's got to take the kids to an appointment or so to an appointment, and I can't even get down and fill some lunch boxes, or get stuff out to fill them, and you start feeling guilty, I suppose, and feeling frustrated for something that you didn't choose. And the hardest bit is that grief doesn't only come from loss. A lot of people tie grief to loss and losing someone or losing a loved one, but it comes from interruption and when life takes a turn you didn't plan for, or when the future you were working towards suddenly pauses. A lot of men probably don't recognize this as grief, and I never have. I've only the last couple of weeks I've sort of started thinking like this, but it still lives in your body. It shows up as sort of anger or exhaustion, emotional shutdown. It can also show up as a physical injury, I think, or injury, sorry. I think a lot of this injury has come from obviously flogging my body at work all the time. And, you know, we're constantly in unnatural positions, doing unnatural movements, whatever it is, for long hours of the day. But I also think the stress that I carry and the anxiety that I carry around, obviously soul as well. And this is all sort of caught up, and it's happened for some reason. And it's a lot to carry as a parent when you're in that situation, or a carer or a loved one. But I suppose naming it doesn't make it any worse. If anything, it probably makes it more honest. Being a dad when you're not okay is one of the hardest things to navigate, which I've found out these last 2 weeks. I mean, I've known that over the years from the mental battles I've faced, but when you're physically incapable, it's very difficult to navigate the world of parenting. You want to be strong, you want to be playful, and you want to be present. Instead, you're managing pain, fear, and frustration behind the scenes, and sometimes not behind the scenes. I broke down a few times in front of Sol, or he's caught me. He's come in the room, and he goes, "Oh, have you got boogers?" Because I'm sniffling and stuff, and he goes, "I'll go get you a tissue." And I'm sort of like, yeah, that's what it is, mate. And then I started realizing, like, I probably shouldn't hide that from him. I probably should just tell him, like, it's not your fault. It's not his fault, or my wife's fault, or Atlas, our other son's fault, or anyone's. It's the pain of trying to navigate this tricky time and missing the things that you held so dearly. You know, I've sort of had moments or a lot of moments where I've been sitting there watching the kids play and felt this sort of deep ache that I couldn't join in the way I wanted to. I can't get on the floor and wrestle. I can't lay down. And Sol and I would lay side by side on the floor and tell each other jokes. And then laid on top of that's fear, with Sol's surgery coming up and finding that out. It's sort of it's stirred up absolutely everything. And, hospital walls, I suppose, and the thought of a hospital and that whole ordeal brings a lot of old emotions back to the surface. And when you're already vulnerable, it hits a hell of a lot harder, and it makes your mind go crazy. And it's about, like we've spoken about before, trying to function in the chaos. And I've sort of caught myself trying to stay strong for everyone while, I'm quietly falling apart on the inside. And I've had some difficult conversations with my partner just about how I'm feeling, and I'm trying to reassure her that if she needs any help, like, I'll do whatever I physically can. But again, you just feel completely useless. And I keep going back though to Martin's mantra of everything will be okay and we'll be all right. And not because I know how to, and not because, I'm certain that it will be, but because believing that gives me somewhere to stand, I suppose, when the fear tries to take over. I want to be careful here as well, because I've been a big believer of nothing ever happens for a reason. And I don't believe this had to happen probably the way it did. But I sort of do believe that sometimes life forces clarity through stillness, and being injured sort of stripped everything back. It's made me question my relationship with work, what my definition of success is, and I suppose the cost of always pushing through, which is what I've always done. There's been times where I should never have been at work because of the mental state I'm in, dealing with what I'm dealing at home. I've missed so many appointments, specialists, checks, everything, because I'm like, we need that money. I need to work. And I sit back now and I go, fuck that. Like, I've given up so much, and look where it's gotten me. It's probably slowed me down in a way that I didn't choose, and I'm angry about that a lot of the time. Like, the wife and kids are out at the moment, and like I said, we're with my parents, so they're at work. And these are the moments where I sit there and I sort of write things down, and I sort of try to figure out who is Jake Donnelly, where am I going, what am I doing. But I suppose in those quiet moments, what has emerged is probably perspective, and a sense that what I was doing wasn't going to be sustainable forever, and that providing can't come at the cost of being present, both physically and emotionally, and that healing isn't a luxury; it's probably necessary in life to heal. I don't know if this is sort of a turning point for me in life right now. I'm leaning towards it probably is, but I sure as hell know that I'm fucking standing at the fork in the road going, you either got to go left or you're going to go right. And whatever choice you go down, be intentional. Grab the bull by the horns, as they say, and run with the fucking thing, because I can't keep putting myself through this and being in this same position every, 6 to 12 months. And at the moment, they're unsure even if I'll be able to go back on the tools with what I've done. So it's all just navigating that tricky space. And obviously, I want to get back. My employer's been fantastic and helped me through so much. And I do enjoy working for them at this current point in time. They are great. But this fork in the road needs to be this part of my journey, or my walk is sort of me at a crossroads, and I need to make my mind up. One of the biggest lies men sort of tell themselves is that you only need to rebuild once. And I've touched on it before. I've rebuilt time and time again. But we tell ourselves that if you just get back on your feet, everything will be fine. But rebuilding isn't linear. It happens after an injury. It happens after burnout. It happens after mistakes. It happens after loss. It happens after you've lost your cool, raised your voice to the kids. It's always about rebuilding and repairing. And I've been sitting there sort of thinking over the last couple of weeks, like, Martin rebuilt himself after prison. And I've watched him rebuild, and it's admirable. Hasn't been pretty at times. He's fucked up once or twice. Like in his own personal life or whatever, or sort of decisions he questioned or made or whatever, but he's taken the time to really focus on rebuilding himself. And now I'm sort of in that process of rebuilding through pain and uncertainty. And I'm sure there are sort of a lot of men listening, and parents and carers who are listening, who sort of are rebuilding every day after they've been laid off from work, or they've had a breakdown, or life just doesn't go to plan. And it doesn't mean you got to rebuild from scratch. It just means starting from experience. So I've always found that sort of rebuilding gets easier over time, and repairing things gets easier. The first time fucking sucks, and it's always hard, but then you sort of get used to it, and it can look and come in many different forms. But the most bravest thing you can probably do is be present and stay present in the middle of it all. And you don't need to rush to fix everything. As Martin would say, everything will be okay and we'll be all right. And that's not because it's easy, but because we've got to keep showing up, not just for our family and friends and everyone else, but for ourselves. If you're listening to this, I suppose, and your life feels paused right now, I really want you to hear what I've got to say. You're not weak because your body needs rest. You're not falling apart or failing because you're not producing at full capacity. And you're not falling behind because you're healing. You don't need any answers today, and you don't need a 5-year plan, and you don't need to justify your pain, whether it's mental or physical. You kind of just need to understand you need permission to be where you are right now without turning it into a verdict on your worth. Everything will be okay, and it will be all right. Not because life guarantees it, but because we choose to keep walking. I'm still healing. This is probably a shorter episode than the other ones, but I can't have a longer one. I can feel the pain in my back starting to increase, and this lump of support behind me can do so much. I appreciate the efforts it's putting in. It's probably the MVP at the moment, but I'm still trying to figure things out. I'm still healing. I'm still walking. And even if those steps look a lot different or are painful right now, if this episode met you where you are, then probably sit with it, listen to it, reflect on it, write things down, be intentional, do all the things that sort of make you the best version of yourself. My advice is appreciate your kids, appreciate your family, and don't take for granted those small moments, because they can get snatched away from you pretty quick, especially the things you adore doing and love doing. This is the walk, sometimes forward, sometimes still, and sometimes it can be extremely painful. But you're never alone. Never feel alone. Never feel that your self-worth is not there, or that you are not valued in this life, because you are. Everything will be all right. We will be okay. I'm Jake Donnelly. Thanks for walking with me. This is The Walk.